the shooting range. In this episode, Marcel Riffard and his unusual methods of improving his aircraft. We look at new battle ratings. Hotline. The developers answer questions that you've left in the comments. But first, let's start with how to fly the Heinkel 100D1. What speed do you expect of an aircraft with a battle rating of 1.7? About 500-550 kph, right? And the top diving speed? Just above 600 kph. But there is one plane that's quite unique for this BR, the HE-100D1. It's incredibly fast, climbs pretty well too, and few can catch up with it at the speed of almost 700 kph. This bird can easily shake any enemy off and disembowel almost anything in seconds while booming and zooming. By the way, this German plane is armed with 3 7.92 caliber MG-17 machine guns. It doesn't look like a lot compared with, say, Hurricane's 8 machine guns. But a smaller burst is compensated by a good pile of ammo, 1,500 bullets. It's more than enough to destroy 3 targets in one flight, and even more. But of course, there's a big price to pay for the high speed. First of all, the engine isn't quite reliable. It overheats like crazy and shuts down after any hit, no matter how critical it is. And the cooling systems are obviously made of paper or something like that. They're very fragile as well. All it takes is one hit to a wing. We can also add to the list bad maneuverability at velocity under 400 kph and the fact that the plane shakes during maneuvers. But really, who cares? It's fast. It can easily gain 560 kph during horizontal flight and safely exit a dive at maximum overload. If you want maneuvers, it won't kill you to use the flaps. Probably. Also, you might want to remember a couple of other things. Frontal attacks are a no-go. Pick your position, use the boom and zoom tactic. Don't try the easy way. Remember that a single hit would be enough to force you to retreat to the base. Carefully control the temperature, especially in the deserts and other hot maps. Your engine is as moody as hell. Don't rush. It's better to play carefully from a good altitude and strike the enemies one by one than to get return fire from the survivors. And now let's talk about a man who decided that there is more than one way to improve a plane. One-engine monoplane fighters were developing in a similar way all around the globe. Say, you need to improve the armament and speed of a certain aircraft. That means you need a more powerful engine. More power means increased size and weight of the engine. It also means it will consume more fuel. So your plane's getting bigger and even heavier. And then let's remember that the ammo also gets bigger and heavier with the increase of calibers. And to protect the aircraft from all those, you need heavier armor. So, yes, you need an even more powerful engine. And so it goes on and on. For example, at the beginning of World War II, the US Army had the P-40 fighter that weighed under 3 tons and had an 1,100 horsepower motor. By the end of the same war, they flew the P-47. 10 tons and about a 3,000 horsepower engine. That's quite a leap. This tendency became clear as early as the start of the monoplane era in the early 30s. Most of the aircraft designers accepted this and started ordering more and more powerful engines from the motor builders. That was the obvious way. But there were those who decided to break the wheel. They picked less powerful but lighter engines and used them to create tiny fighters around them. So what they were losing in power, they were gaining in weight efficiency and perfect aerodynamics. A fine and simple idea that few had the courage and the talent to implement. There was such an engineer in France. His name was Marcel Riffard. Before the war, he was building light multi-purpose aircraft and racing planes. But the inevitable threat of open war with Germany pushed him to this difficult path. Or maybe he just wanted to experiment. Or he simply wanted to make use of a lot of engines that the French considered to be outdated and inappropriate for the new wave fighters. Anyway, in 1936, he presented a small fighter Quadron C-710 with two 20mm wing-mounted guns Hispano-Suiza HS-9. The aircraft was pretty decent. It was very good at horizontal maneuvering and climbing, as a racing plane should. But it also had a fixed landing gear that it got from one of its predecessors, the Quadron Simoun. It seriously limited the maximum velocity of the plane, so Riffard had to invent a retractable one as quickly as he could. He succeeded, but the new landing gear was very heavy, so he had to swap the guns with 4 machine guns. And in 1938, this looked like a joke. But at the very same time, the anti-German hysteria in France got to the highest point. The Air Ministry clerks that usually rejected anything that wasn't profitable for themselves panicked, demanding the production of every concept anyone could present. So the C-714 model got to production, even though Marcel Riffard promised to get the wing-mounted guns back as soon as he could. He just needed, you guessed it, a more powerful engine. The war with Germany clearly highlighted the imperfections of the unfinished fighter. It had a small battle radius and poor armament, but the most troubling was the landing gear with its tiny wheels. It wasn't suitable for any field aerodrome. But despite all that, French and Polish pilots managed to deal a great amount of damage to the Luftwaffe planes. As for Marcel Riffard, he never stopped improving his plane. He created the C-760 with 6 machine guns, and then the C-770, where he finally brought back 2 wing-mounted guns. No matter the difficulty of the task, he could create a fighter that would be as good as the best Luftwaffe machines, to say the least. All he needed was a chance. Sadly, he didn't get one. On the 20th of June 1940, France capitulated, and the French pilots retreated to England or surrendered themselves to the mercy of the Germans. Marcel Riffard didn't want his work to get into the enemy's hands, so he burned every blueprint and all other documents he could find, put on a beret, took a rifle, and joined the resistance as a simple soldier, leaving aviation for good. New tech added to the game is always followed by the refresh of the battle ratings, especially when we add some top machines. Let's see what changed this time. First of all, the top tanks of Tier 6. As expected, they went up to the 9.0 rating in the realistic battles, along with the Rakitin Jagdpanzer, HOT. This allowed the simplification of the gameplay on a lot of machines that were previously suffering from top APDS damage. One of the lucky guys is the mouse that doesn't have to suffer from all those T-64s and MBTs from now on. Next to rejoice are the owners of the first Leopards. This tank's BR is down to 7.7, which means the HE shells that pierce 400mm of armor can scare a lot more people now. Just remember that your protection isn't that good, and even the tech with the 6.7 BR can pierce the Leopard in the front. The Japanese also went through some changes. The STB-1 and the Type 61 are 0.3 of a point down. and the Type 74, on the contrary, is up to 8.7, mainly because it has a new top shell that pierces 360 millimeters of armor. That's what's most important in the ground forces. As for the planes, there aren't many changes this time. Still, the D4Y dive bombers are down, as well as the new P-51H and the BE-6. But the main change is, of course, that the B-57A is a whole point down. It wasn't effective against the top jets because of a small bomb load, but at 7.0, it has a chance to fulfill all its potential and become a really hard target to shoot down. Get ready for the traditional last part of our show, Hotline. Developers answering questions from the comments. The first question comes from TumaGamer1205. What about French tanks? For now, we're all about the planes. And when we're done with them, of course, there's a possibility for the tanks too. A player called Nils Johnson asks, it's a Swedish tech tree in low, medium or high priority? Hey mate, Sweden had some great machines of their own, that's true, but not that much to give them a separate tech tree. We might include them to a tree with other European nations, but it's hard to tell right now. But don't forget about the STRV-81. Then there is a question from Peter LJ. Will you add 6-rank airplanes? We announced on our site that, firstly, we're going to do some internal gameplay tests of the Vietnam War jets. But maybe, just maybe, and in due time, Rank 6 aviation will be added to the game. And the last question comes from Focus Accurate. Can I ask the last question? You just did, mate. But feel free to elaborate in the comments. Well, that's it for today, but feel free to write your questions in the comments below. We do read them all, and you might see some of them answered in the next episode. If you like what we're doing, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you on the shooting range.